Welcome. My name is Homer Wesley. I'm Vice President of Student Services. Senator Owen Hill, son Caden, right here on the front row. Special invited and distinguished guests, faculty, staff, students, veterans, and your families. On behalf of the President of the College, Dr. Lance Bolton, and all of the staff and faculty, thank you for sharing your time with us today to celebrate our nation's military service members and veterans. I would like to send a special thanks to the individuals who have volunteered their time to organize various events to commemorate this special occasion throughout the week. Senator Hill, sir, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to spend it with our veterans today. The Color Guard from NORAD, Northcom, our own PPCC choir, the Rockies Clarinet Quartet, the Pikes Peak Highlanders, and the Pikes Peak Military and Veterans Program employees. Thank you all for making this program and this week a success. Pikes Peak Community College is located here at the edge of Fort Carson in the shadows of NORAD, down the road from Peterson, Shriver, and the Air Force Academy. Colorado Springs and the Pikes Peak region is a proud military community with a significant military presence for decades, which continues to grow as more and more veterans decide to stay in the local area. It is an appropriate and important thing that we do to gather here to honor our veterans, to remember their service, both in peace and in wartime, their courage and their sacrifices. It is for this reason we take this day to reflect their willingness, the willingness of a few to give of themselves to defend us in this country. If you have never served in the military, if you want to get a glimpse of why veterans do what they do or did what they did, I encourage all of you to take a moment and to read the poem in the program written by one of our own student veterans, Anthony Millette, as it provides a very poignant description of why veterans serve. Thank you, Anthony, for your words. Today is the day to say thank you to our veterans, to reflect on the sacrifices that they have made for the greater good of our nation. At Pikes Peak Community College, we have the opportunity to serve almost 4,000 members of the military family, active duty veterans and their families. It is a privilege, but it is also a responsibility, a duty, to serve the Colorado Springs community in this capacity. While today is a day to reflect and to give thanks, it is also a day that we may look towards the future, to pledge to serve others, all students, one another, to strive to do better every day, to succeed in serving others the way that our military service members and veterans have served us. This we owe to them. Thank you for your service. It is an honor to celebrate Veterans Day with you today.
Welcome to the 40th Pikes Peak Community College observance of Veterans Day 2017. I am Wayne Artis, and I have the honor to be the Master of Ceremonies today. Please rise and remain standing for the presentation of colors, the Pledge of Allegiance, the singing of the National Anthem by the PPCC Choir under the direction of Ms. Gail Grace, and the invocation led by Chaplain Paul Anderson. Present the colors.
Forward, march. Detail. Off. Left. Face.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we
now we will have the invocation by Chaplain Paul Anderson.
Let us pray. O God, today, please let every veteran of our armed forces feel truly and appropriately honored by the attention and the appreciation of their fellow citizens. Today, let none of them be forgotten or neglected, and let every man and woman, young and old, feel the deep and enduring gratitude of our nation. You know that it can be difficult to return from battle or stressful military service to reintegrate into normal everyday life. And you know that veterans can feel isolated and alone, even in the midst of their family and friends, because often there are few around who understand their experience. Place in the path of our veterans those who do understand or strive to, that they may feel less alone, and remind them often that while their fellow human beings may never fully comprehend, you know and you identify with them in everything. Lord, you know how deep a warrior's wounds can go. You know the loss that many of our veterans have endured in body and soul, and you know the memories that haunt them and the scars that many of them continue to carry. Bring healing to those who still hurt. And please grant us patience and wisdom, those around them who cannot understand, but sometimes can help in the healing process. This morning, turn your eyes upon those men and women who in their military service have sacrificed time, comfort, and strength and ambition, health and prosperity for the peace and safety of family and friends. Please reward them 100-fold for their sacrifice and service. Bless them far beyond all their expectations and reward them richly for all they gave. Lastly, Almighty God, you know every veteran by name, and you know their hard work and their perseverance, and you know their needs, both material and spiritual. Please draw each one of them closer to you and grant them all peace and joy in your presence. Amen.
Please be seated. In 1921, an unknown World War I American soldier was buried in Arlington National Cemetery. This site, located on the grounds of what was once the home of General Robert E. Lee, sits on a hillside overlooking the Potomac River and the city of Washington. It has become the focal point of remembrance for Americans' veterans. Similar ceremonies occurred earlier in England and France, where an unknown soldier was buried in each nation's highest place of honor. In England, Westminster Abbey; in France, the Arc de Triomphe. These memorial acts took place on November 11, giving universal recognition to the celebrated ending of World War I fighting at 11 a.m. November 11, 1918, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. This day became known as Armistice Day. Armistice Day officially received its name in America in 1926 through a congressional resolution. It became a national holiday 12 years later by similar congressional action. If World War I, with over 10 million deaths, was the war to end all wars, November 11th might still be called Armistice Day. But only a few years after the proclamation of the holiday, war broke out in Europe and Asia. 16.5 million Americans took part. 407,000 of them died in service, more than 292,000 in battle. The total number of civilian and military dead was between 70 and 100 million throughout the world, with half the casualties being civilian. Realizing that veterans of World War II and Korea also helped to preserve the peace, Congress took up a bill to make this day an occasion to honor those who have served America in all wars. In 1954, President Eisenhower signed the bill proclaiming November 11th Veterans Day. The focal point for official National Veterans Day ceremonies continues to be the Memorial Amphitheater built around the Tomb of the Unknowns at Arlington. Every year, in addition, the President of the United States urges all Americans to honor the commitment of our veterans through appropriate public ceremonies. Thus, we at Pikes Peak Community College do annually pay tribute to our veterans on this most important observance. The Rockies Clarinet Quintet will now play the service medley. Please stand as your service song is played. Our speaker today is Colorado Senator Owen Hill. Senator Hill represents the citizens of Senate District 10 in El Paso County. As the dedicated father of 4, Senator Hill champions Colorado's kids and works tirelessly to ensure that families are given the freedom to determine the best choice for their students' education. As chair of the Senate Education Committee, Owen holds that every student is a unique individual with educational needs and goals and should be given the chance to flourish in an environment that best fits who they are. Owen advocates for the ideas that will create jobs and offer opportunities for success in the 21st century. As a graduate of the Air Force Academy with a doctorate in economics from the Pardee Rand Graduate School, Senator Hill knows firsthand the value of liberty and sacrifice. Owen is dedicated to prioritizing the needs of Colorado's veterans and ensuring that our brave men and women in uniform are welcomed home with honor and given opportunities to serve in our local community. In addition to serving the people of El Paso County, Senator Hill also owns his own management and consulting firm. Senator Hill.
So as you look to the past, over your shoulder, you will see standing behind you a great gathering of heroes. Closer in, you might see Kyle Carpenter, Chris Kyle. Maybe standing a little bit behind them, folks like Lance Sijon and Drew Dix. Ruben Acosta, Dirk Vlug, Audie Murphy. And friends, time will fail us if we even just name a fraction of the heroes and their stories that have come to us through oppressive jungles, desiccated deserts. They have marched through suffocating humidity, otherworldly cold, fought back disease, despair, and death to ask us, what kind of heroes will we be today? Veterans Day is not just about remembering not only our past, but many others who have gone before. It's also about asking us the question, how will we act in the living present? And I know it's not much of a surprise for you when I say that our society is divided. Our politics are polarized, and we know from the past that a house divided against itself cannot stand. Therefore, the burden is on those of us who love this country, who long for it to survive, to our children's children's children, to find a way to bring unity, to find a way to strengthen the bond between neighbors. And my fellow veterans, my challenge and encouragement to you today is that our society needs heroes, heroes who are born for this time and this place at a time that can pull us through the polarization and call us to unity. And I'm convinced that veterans are uniquely qualified to do exactly this. Veterans are uniquely qualified to be the heroes that we need for today. You see, our founding documents talk about a country establishing a government to provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty. And we have been blessed by liberty, and we universally agree on that goal. But the other two have been a challenge, providing for the common defense, promoting the general welfare, have sadly become divisive. This owes in part to the price tag of a strong military, as well as the failures of individuals and collectively to wage a just war. The left denigrates the work required to provide for the common defense, and conversely, due in part to the price tag and individual and collective failures of treating all of our citizens equally, the right disgraces most of the discussion of what it means to promote the general welfare or the common good. And here's where veterans unify both sides. You see, veterans, we have done both. We have provided for the common defense. We have been in the arena. We have tasted the salt of sweat and of blood. You have seen mankind at his best, and you have seen our inhumanity. Whether on land or sea, in the air and space, you have provided for the common defense. And by risking everything, risking your life, even life in a foreign country, risking it for a country that can never fully repay you, you have said there is something greater than radical individuality. You have said there is something greater than ourselves. You have said that there is a common good. You have said that there is a general welfare. And so by providing for the common defense, you have promoted the general welfare. And both the left and the right are able to look at you as veterans today and say, thank you for your service. Now, you're in good company if you are tempted to think that, well, I didn't jump on a grenade to save my friends. I didn't disable 5 tanks with a service revolver before breakfast. You didn't look out for kamikazes in the middle of a vast blue ocean. You didn't stare down and charge a pillbox at Normandy. You were in good company if you think you have not been that kind of hero. You see, I am an Air Force veteran. I flew spreadsheets. I flew my cubicle. I risked carpal tunnel for the sake of our nation's future. And you grunts and squids and jarheads so affectionately call it the chair force. But if you think you're not that kind of hero, you are wrong. And I want to share with you a story of Sergeant Roy. And I'm a politician, so I have to moralize some. And my encouragement as I share this story of Sergeant Roy is that one person, one young kid, can make all the difference in the world, can transform someone's life. So I remember Mrs. Anderson was my teacher in 2nd grade. Desert Storm was starting up in August of 1990. And she found, as all great teachers do, they find a way to bring together current events with the past, current people with geography and ideas. And she found a program where you could write a letter, an anonymous letter, to service members who were deployed and maybe hadn't received much mail. And so we all wrote our anonymous letters, and we said deeply encouraging things like, "Hi, how are you? My name is Owen. What are you doing today?" All the great things that a 9-year-old or an 8-year-old writes. And I remember she always encouraged us to say at the end, "Thank you for your service and God bless." I don't know why I remember that, but I do. And we sent these letters off, and I will never forget the excitement a couple weeks later when I got a letter back in the mail from Sergeant Roy. Sergeant Roger Roy, in fact. Sergeant Roy and I started up a pen pal relationship back and forth. He shared, I don't remember his letters very candidly, but I do remember coming home from school some days, and if I didn't have soccer practice or had to work in the yard, I would ask my mom if I could go and bake chocolate chip cookies, and we would box them up and send it over to Sergeant Roy, and God knows what kind of condition they were in by the time they got there. And I remember just the satisfaction of being a part of something not in our own country, not on our own continent, but all the way across the world. And yet, still somehow I was brothers with Sergeant Roy. In May, we were wrapping up school. I was sitting at the kitchen bar, eating a bowl of cereal when a knock came at my door. And I remember running to the door. "Who's here?" And here's a man standing in uniform, dressed blues, and his maroon beret. And Sergeant Roy had, he'd come back, he'd landed at Dover. And having nothing but an address, looked it up on a map and said, "How do I get down 8 hours away to Blacksburg, Virginia? Because I want to go meet this family." And so Sergeant Roy comes down, he spends the whole afternoon talking just about what was going on. And I remember only 2 things. And 2 things stand out to me. I don't know that they're significant, because I think half the time I was sneaking downstairs surreptitiously trying to put on my own camouflage clothes so I could be somewhat like Sergeant Roy. But Sergeant Roy, I remember too, he drew a picture of a Patriot missile battery and how it explodes and sends out a burst of marbles, the way he described it, to destroy incoming Scuds. And he also talked about being all lined up, and the truck comes up with the orders to move in, and they're all convinced this is our chance to move in. And he said it actually wasn't the truck with orders to move in. He said it was the mail truck, and that mail truck delivered some chocolate chip cookies. And he was still upset because he only got one of those because all his comrades came and took all the other cookies on top of his tank. And those were the cookies that I had sent to him. And I remember he shared this as my mother was baking another tray of chocolate chip cookies. And then he took me out on the front porch and he let me wear his maroon beret. He showed me how to put on and wear and set up a keffiyeh. And then Sergeant Roy drove off. And I've never talked to Sergeant Roy again. But I'll tell you this, my life was changed forever because of that man. From that day forward, I said, I'm going to do whatever it takes to walk in his footsteps, to serve the country he served. And you know, it's funny, I think of him as a man, as a big, strong man. Then I look at pictures now in my mother's photo album, and goodness, that boy was a kid. He was a kid. And so I share this story with you and Sergeant Roy to tell you that, friends, these, my fellow veterans, these are the kind of heroes we need going forward. And you may not have started some great nonprofit that's going to solve or cure PTSD. You may not have a legacy that will be written about in history books. But I will tell you, there are boys and there are girls around our community. There are old veterans longing for someone to sit with them. And so my encouragement to you this Veterans Day is to say it's not good enough that we have served, but to ask, how can we still serve? And so maybe some practical suggestions is that instead of binge watching Netflix this winter, put on that uniform again and go find a local Boy Scout troop and be a hero to them. Instead of, you can do this right now, put it on your calendar for next Veterans Day. Instead of going and arguing about who's standing and who's not for some national anthem at a football game, go march in the local Veterans Day parade and throw back that salute to the veterans who are blessed to see another generation who believe in the same things they do. Maybe it's reaching out to a family in your church and sharing some of your same stories with their kids and saying, you too someday can wear a maroon beret. You too could be an airborne ranger. You too could fly a spreadsheet. Friends, whatever it is, that is the greater good. That is the common defense that our country and our community so desperately needs right now. And so this Veterans Day, as we look to past heroes, I encourage you, ask yourself, what kind of hero can you be going forward? What kind of hero can you inspire for the next generation? It is not good enough to rest on our laurels. It is not good enough that we have served. Ask, how can you continue to serve? So my fellow veterans, I encourage you, carry on. Continue to be that hero that you already are. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hill. Please stand for the playing of America the Beautiful by the Rockies Clarinet Quartet. Please be seated. Your presence today honors not only the veterans of past wars and those now serving, but more importantly, it underscores our commitment to their memory, and especially to the memory of those who gave their lives in service to their country. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our Veterans Day observance. Our special thanks go to Colorado Senator Owen Hill, the Highland Pipers, the Rockies Clarinet Quartet, the PPCC Choir, the NORAD and U.S. NORTHCOM Joint Service Color Guard, and everyone from PPCC involved in making this ceremony a memorable occasion, and to all of you for coming out today to honor our veterans. Please stand for the playing of Amazing Grace. Retire the colors.
Forward, march. Detail. Up. Left. Face. Ready. Step. Ready. Step.
Please join us for refreshments in the atrium. Thank you.